Making movies is tough work. It's time-consuming work too, with multiple departments working on different parts of the movie and everyone trying to bring the whole thing together into something magical. But sometimes, movies can get a little too ambitious and end up needing more time in the oven. In this video, we're going to take a look at a few of the movies that took the longest to make. Let's start with the Lynch classic, Eraserhead. This was David Lynch's very first feature-length movie, and it might just be his most brain-melting effort. Luckily, he produced it in collaboration with the American Film Institute, who were willing to lend him their time and resources after they saw that the script was just 20 pages long. Anyone who's seen Eraserhead knows that it's the kind of movie you can't put into words. Anyway, the movie would eventually take 5 years before the cameras finally stopped rolling. Among the reasons why the movie took so long to make is that the production crew was basically just Lynch and his friends. But that aside, he was transitioning from being an artist to being a filmmaker, and combined with the breadth of his imagination, a lot of time was spent trying new ideas and getting things exactly right. It sure looks like the work paid off. For many, Eraserhead is often considered a must-watch film. For anyone with the mental and physical fortitude to sit through it, it's a true icon of art cinema that helped build the legend of Lynch. Moving on, we'll now check out the story of Cronos. Guillermo del Toro is a director who will be familiar to movie fans. He's worked on arty films like Pan's Labyrinth and The Shape of Water, as well as popcorn fare like Hellboy and Pacific Rim. Just like David Lynch though, del Toro's first movie was a big old boondoggle that took 8 years to complete. If you know anything about Guillermo del Toro, then you've probably figured out that the reason this movie took so long was because of his trademark perfectionism and penchant for practical effects. Cronos had many companies backing it, and most of them lost patience with del Toro's sky-high budget and impractical schedule. The movie was only finished thanks to some high-interest personal loans and a cut to Ron Perlman's paycheck. The finished product was a pretty solid display of the things del Toro would eventually acquire a reputation for, and it was selected as Mexico's entry for the Best Foreign Film Oscar. Though it didn't get the nomination, that was still a good injection of prestige for the novice director. The next movie is Roar. You wouldn't expect a comedy movie to take 11 years to film, but Roar was a little different from your average adventure comedy. The movie was conceived by Noel Marshall and Tippi Hedren, who ended up casting members of their family in the project, including Melanie Griffith. It's about lions, you see, and it involves shooting with actual lions on set. It shouldn't be too hard to piece together the rest of the story, right? Although the movie was meant to promote awareness of endangered African wildlife, Marshall started collecting young lions and other animals for his shoot illegally. He also used non-union labor to build sets that could hopefully support the weight of a bunch of lions. This stuff cost the family a lot of money, forcing them to sell their homes and land and leading to Marshall's company going bankrupt. Filming wild animals is easier said than done, and some scenes took months to shoot. The injuries started to rack up too, with 48 reported in the first 2 years. Marshall had suffered many severe bites from the lions. Hedren, meanwhile, nearly had her head bitten off and was thrown around by an elephant. The list goes on, and Marshall admitted that around 100 cast and crew members had been injured on set. Is it any wonder the movie took so long to make? While it was decently reviewed at the time, Roar stands out as a relic of an era when Hollywood didn't care for animal rights. Now, let's look back at the making of The Thin Red Line. Terrence Malick making a war film is certainly an interesting idea. Malick is all about subtleties and details which you don't usually see in war movies, but that was the approach he took to The Thin Red Line, and it wound up costing him 10 years to make. The movie is an adaptation of the semi-autobiographical novel by James Jones, but even in the script writing phase, Malick was focusing on things like wildlife and obscure local cultures. His first script was 300 pages long, and while it was edited down, it set the stage for how the director planned to film his movie. On Malick's insistence, a lot of the shooting took place in the Solomon Islands, which didn't have the best infrastructure for a big movie production. He also filmed parts on Dancer Mountain, which was difficult for trailers and trucks to reach. He was intently focused on incorporating nature into the war story, blending in shots of nature with the shots of fighting. He ended up turning in a 5-hour assembly cut, which ended up taking months to edit into something that Malick would be satisfied with. But those exacting standards paid off, as The Thin Red Line is a GOAT-tier war movie. Our next entry is a two-parter, featuring Avatar and its sequel. James Cameron has always been the sort of director to be totally fine with shelving a movie if the technology didn't exist to make it yet. That's what happened with Avatar, which he conceived during the filming of Titanic, and was supposed to be made right after that romantic epic. However, Cameron decided that the CG and 3D technologies he wanted to use weren't there yet, and Avatar was put on a long back burner. Once he felt that he could execute his true vision of the movie, he began working on it, and the movie eventually came out late in 2009. At the time, he announced that he had already figured out 4 sequels to the movie that he was totally going to start working on, until he realized that the technology was, yet again, behind his imagination. After over a decade, we're finally gearing up to catch Avatar: The Way of Water, which uses revolutionary new filming and CG techniques to achieve Cameron's vision of a movie that takes place in and around water. Luckily for us, he shot Avatar 3 back-to-back, so the wait for the next sequel won't be nearly as long. The first Avatar certainly paid off for Cameron's desire for superior technology, and it's already looking like The Way of Water will do it all over again. That just leaves one question: is the tech ready for Avatars 4 and 5? Now, we'll look at the movie Tiefland. Unlike most of the movies we've seen so far, Tiefland is a German movie, West German to be precise. It first came out all the way back in 1954, but that's not the year the cameras started rolling. Oh no, Tiefland was a masterpiece 20 years in the making. The director of Tiefland started working on the script in 1934, but the movie had to go in her drawer because she got caught up doing something else. And by something else, we mean making propaganda films for the Nazis. Yes, Tiefland was directed by none other than Leni Riefenstahl. While Riefenstahl made some technically brilliant films to promote the Nazis, she became disillusioned with her job when World War II kicked into gear. She left that job and, using her influence with the Nazi Party, established a production company that would be free from Nazi oversight. Once she got the ball rolling on Tiefland, things went far from smoothly. As her plans were interrupted a few times by, the war, the movie suffered one last setback, as, after the war, it was confiscated by the French government for many years. In the process, 4 reels of film were lost. After all that, Tiefland was finally available for the world to see, and they realized that it was just an okay opera movie. The final movie on this list is the one that took the longest to make. David Lynch's 5-year production of Eraserhead may have irritated the American Film Institute, but it was a brisk job compared to the making of The Thief and The Cobbler, which ended up taking 28 years. And the movie is still technically unfinished. The movie was the brainchild of Richard Williams, who wanted to make a movie about the stories of Mullah Nasruddin. While the movie first got a strong start with backing from the family of the author of the stories, Idris Shah, things got bogged down as conflicts developed between Shah and Williams. But what really crippled the movie was the insane ambitions of the director, which scared off prospective financial backers, including Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Faisal. It was eventually the Completion Bond Company that, in 1989, got involved with the movie and eventually hijacked it. After 18 months of work, Williams lost control of the project, and Fred Calvert eventually wrangled a generic musical out of his footage. That's it for today's video. Have you seen any of the movies on this list? Let us know what you thought of them in the comment section below, and share some stories you know of overly long movie productions. But whatever you do, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.